Drip, 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 drip. I want to say there was a point where I wanted to stay, but the tide was going to take me one way or another. And so it did, and now I ride the crest of waves. They crashed and they are wet. The jet stream is wild and fast and takes you where you need to go sometimes, and sometimes it dashes you to the rocks. But you get used to it, and you can learn, and then you can ride the waves as they come. Been cycling it out, take the clothes, drought, rain, chasing, ring it out, dry your shoes, clout, flooding rain, dry it up, move far away from the loud smell, storm, dry it out, take me back to my house. I want to say the rivers always run forward. I want to say the waves constantly crash into the sea. But how can you ever really know? Does the ocean ever take a break? If in not one moment is it able to stop? No. The answer is no, and science is there to explain it. It must go constantly. It is peaceful, working always. It must go, it must flow. Ocean. When I walked on the ocean floor, all was quiet. There was a peace in a certain type of reverence. There was a loving place sometime. There was a wild place too. But it was home, and it was a nice place to be. I have to say it was nice sometimes being down there at the very bottom of everything. It wasn't really good. It wasn't really bad. Unless it was really bad. But even those times have a certain depth to them which defy their true natures and obscure, and the quiet covers it all up like a blanket, but chilling the life out of these situations. So in the end, it is just a big, quiet patchwork quilt. You can see the stitches and tears and eons of work that allowed it to exist. You can see the frays, the bright and faded hues, the colors. You can feel the cotton on your skin, but it's quiet and somber always. It's a quote you only pull out when you want to remember what it feels like to be on the bottom of the ocean. Alright, so I guess this is episode 2 of Musing with the Muse today. We're coming in hot today with water. I'm not gonna do fire first. I don't really feel like talking about it. It's an actual thing that happens, so with stuff like that, you kind of have to take it with, when you're ready to take it, and I don't think I'm ready for that one yet. So we're gonna skip that one, go into water. We'll jump back to fire at some point. We'll probably save it for the end, because everything else is kind of more fun than that one, in terms of like theme and how I want to talk about it and if I want to talk about it or not. So I'm okay with talking about everything on the poem, obviously, because I already wrote it and I already put it out there. But that one takes a bit more. I think it's gonna take a bit more for me to kind of get into that one. So we'll save that one for a later day, and we're just gonna talk about Warrior today. And I know this podcast idea that I have right now is gonna be going back and forth between new stuff, old stuff, and kind of just branching out into different different stuff that I've written eventually. Um, but right now we're just talking about the album. I think it will probably go like my next episode will probably be a different poem that it's either recorded on SoundCloud already or something that I will read during that during that episode of the podcast, and I can just talk about it after reading it. I'll talk about it. And we go back and forth between reading it and talking about it. I don't know. We got a lot of ideas. We got a lot of stuff that we can do. So it's gonna be a fun one because I've written so much shit to the point where I could go back from like 10 years ago and say, oh yeah, I wrote this 10 years ago. Let's talk about it. That's so fun, and I like this idea a lot. So I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it. All right. Anyways, let's get to water. Phone going off. Let's see what's going on over here. Share your track on social media. Nah, I'm good for now. Yeah. So let's talk about water. It's about drinking. I used to drink a lot. Now I don't drink at all, but I used to drink a lot. As you know, I sold wine for a living. I think I said that already. I sold wine for a living. I told y'all I sold wine for a living, and I'm pretty good at that. Um, like I'm a certified sommelier. I mean, you could ask about me too if you want. I mean, I don't really like talking about myself necessarily, but I'm really good at wine stuff in general. So I mean, yeah. So it's kind of like being connected to that, but also liking alcohol and liking drinking and liking the feeling that it creates for you. It's kind of like a very very kind of weird life to live. Um, for a bit, and I feel like a lot of people maybe get into the business because of that, because they like drinking and it's fun. And it's fun if you have control. And when I do have control, then you're just vibing or whatever, and that's not a bad life at all. I think, and I would never judge anybody who does it, and I would never judge anybody for doing it or wanting to do it or wanting to be it because it's fun. Honestly, you just spend your life talking about wine and being involved in this world that's just so cool and interesting, and every day is kind of like an adventure, you know. Because wine is an adventure, honestly. Because each bottle of wine is different. Each bottle of wine, you could have the same bottle, open it up right next to each other. They could be different sometimes. It's not supposed to happen like that. You're supposed to have at least some consistency, bottle to bottle, in the same set, like in the same, you know, vintage. If you want to go with that, But you should have some sort of like, you know, some sort of set of consistency to the wine. But anyway, a tangent. Wow, what did I say about tangents? I said this wouldn't happen, but here we are. This tangent city already. Interesting. Oh, so let's get to water. The first part. So the first part, drip, is drip, 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 drip. 5 times. And I liked it so much. So when I first started the idea for the poem, I thought I would like say that part and then like lower that and then make that the backdrop for the whole poem. But I thought that would be distracting after listening to the first part over and over again. I was like, nah, that's his own thing. Let me just leave that alone. I think they'll understand. It's about after I explain it, they'll understand. It's about kind of like slow drip of like alcohol pouring from a bottle. And I hope that's clearer now that I'm saying it. Maybe you kind of get the sense of that. Um, and then so you're gonna hear that the beat going back and forth on that, and the whole track is just the two notes going back and forth. And I hope it kind of presented kind of like the ocean waves, kind of like just crashing against, like just the ocean, it's like the wave kind of going back and forth. Just that was my thought behind that particular noise that's going on throughout the whole track. So I hope it's pretty comes across pretty well, that part at least. That's what's going on there. So Trip was a lot of fun. I liked it a lot. It's one word, so it's easy to write. It's not hard. It's literally just writing the same word over and over again. So that was the fun part. It's literally one word, so it's nice. It's an easy poem to write and to think about. and just enjoy. This is one word, simple. Um, it's about drinking, so it's fun. Um, yeah. So Ebb. Let's go into Ebb. Ebb is kind of like a more like a serious poem. So the general theme of Ebb is that what I'm saying here, what I'm trying to say here is that one part of my life, I was married at one point, and now I'm not. And my life is way better now, but before, when kind of like in that transitionary phase between being married and not married, um, and then getting to the point where you're single, it's kind of like a transition. And what I mean by that is that um, I feel like I'm single now, but before I just felt like I wasn't married anymore, to say the least. You know what I mean? Like kind of get past that idea that that's over with. Like, anyways, this is kind of like an in between phase that I'm talking about. Um, and obviously you can tell it's rough just from. I mean, I should probably read it so that you know what the fuck I'm talking about. But it says, I want to say there was a point where I wanted to stay, but the tide was going to take me one way or another. And so it did, and now I ride the crest of waves. That verse is directly talking about the idea of me just kind of being like tossed around a bit. I guess you could say not in like a sexual way or anything like that, but more so in the way of like the ocean. Like you're in the ocean and kind of tossing you back and forth. That's how I felt my life was at that period of time. You're just being like, and that's when they crash. They crash in there wet. The jet stream evolves and fast and takes you where you need to go sometimes, and sometimes that's just to the rock. That line is literally me talking about just being smashed into rocks. Like you're in the ocean, and that's what my life felt like during that transitionary period. Mind you, the whole thing is about me drinking, so I'm drinking it in spirit, obviously. And the waves kind of are representing of the alcohol, but also my life at the time. And those things went hand in hand for a very long time. So there's that part. And sometimes that's just a rock, but you get used to it and you can learn, and then you can ride the waves as they come. And that part is like you gotta get adjusted to that lifestyle. Not that you should, not that it's healthy for you to be able to manage that, but after a while, you get okay at managing it. Like I said, it's not healthy. It's not a great way to operate, but when you're good at anything, you're gonna make it work. And I'm not saying I was great. It wasn't great. That's why I wrote a poem about it. It wasn't great at all. It was awful. But you're kind of just sitting there, like in the moment. You're just like, what else am I gonna do? What else am I gonna do? I'm here. This is my life. I'm here. What else am I gonna do? You know. So, real talk. Real talk today. Always real talk. You're gonna get a lot of real talk on this podcast. 'Cause I'm a real talking person. I'm a real talking person. Whatever that means. All right, let's move on to the next one. I think that one. I think you get it. Maelstrom. Maelstrom is fun. It's a song that I wrote. Um, Spin, cycle, ring it out. Pick the clothes, drought, rain, chasing, ring it out. Dry your shoes, crowd, flooding rain. Dry it out, move far away from the louse. Maelstrom, dry it out. Take me back to my house. Um, it's so weird. Um, how this kind of came about. Like, I literally sat down and I wrote it, and I was like, that's weird. I don't know what the fuck this came from. And I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about it a lot because it kind of just came from the ether, if that makes any sense. Like I feel like it just pulled out, and in terms of like what's happening in the poem and what I'm talking about, um, it's kind of like five, four different things about an incident that, not an incident. It's about a person for sure. Yep, here we go. This is a part of the day when I talk to my friend on the phone and he decides if he wants to come over here or do whatever he wants to do because he just woke up probably. Okay, so, yep. Introduction. I will be talking to my phone during this podcast. I'm a very busy person. I don't have a lot of time for myself. So this is what happens is I get distracted and I'm like, hey, I gotta do this too. But also at the same time, you know, I'm trying to be reasonable with y'all. I'm trying to be reasonable with myself. This is my morning. It's literally 10 o'clock in the morning. I've been awake since 7:30, so I've already smoked. I've already had my coffee. I'm drinking my coffee now. I'm about to finish my coffee. Mmm, delicious. But anyway, so it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I've already smoked. I sang. I made coffee, and now I'm podcasting. So I'm moving. I'm always moving. I'm always trying to stay busy. Uh, this poem though, this poem song, I guess you could say at this point, um, it's kind of a weird one because it's kind of personal, and it came out of nowhere, and I was like, huh, that's weird. But these are just some memories that I have with kind of about my these are memories that I have with a family member of mine, and they kind of all just came out kind of like a weird way, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. But I'm not gonna talk about those individual memories at all, other than they're kind of personal. And maybe at some point, but they're not even like bad memories. I just don't really want to think about the person at all. So kind of like a weird, kind of like that's what I'm saying. Like I see it and I'm like, huh, where'd that come from? Can I put that back in my pocket instead? And that's part of the poem. Oh, I will maybe get into that a bit later. Like when I'm comfortable talking about, it, I might come back to that point again at some point. Not in this podcast. I mean, like kind of later podcast episode or something. Um. Oh. So my friend just messaged me about. So I asked my friend. He listened to the album, and I messaged him last night and said, "Hey, if you have any questions, that'd be really cool, because then I could use your questions as like a springboard for kind of um kind of answering questions about the podcast. Because if you have questions, you know, other people probably have those same questions. You're a friend. You've already listened to the album, so if you have anything you want to ask me, that'd be cool. We could talk about it. I'll talk about it with you, and I'll bring it up on the podcast eventually when I get to that point. That's kind of cool. He said yes, because that's A plus news for me moving forward. So that'd be kind of cool to kind of talk to him, get his kind of takes on the album, and hopefully come back to you know, with more insight as to what people may be thinking about the album, maybe what people want to talk about. So this is kind of like a rough episode right now because I don't have questions right now. I'm just kind of going through the poem piece by piece and talking about each one. And yeah, so I'm just gonna go with themes right now. We'll kind of go back and talk about the layout and how things are kind of going, and anything else that I kind of feel like might need to be brought up about them. So flow is just it's kind of a declaration that you know whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, and you can't really control that necessarily. I'm gonna read it because I think you'll get it kind of after I said that. Maybe listen to it now and maybe you'll have a better sense if you didn't understand what was going on there. But it's kind of like about like you don't really have a lot of control sometimes. Um, I want to say the rivers always went forward. I want to say the wave constantly crashed into the sea. But how can you ever really know? Does the ocean ever take a break? If in that moment is it able to stop? No. The answer is no, and the science is there to explain it. It must go constantly. It is peaceful, working always. It must go, it must flow. And I think maybe you'll kind of get more of a sense of that kind of like inevitability of the flow. And the flow, like I said, is probably talking about drinking in this case, right? Or if the whole poem is about drinking. And I guess I mean to say is that you're gonna drink. If you have no block on that, you're just gonna drink. Because why not? Like, why would you not drink? Like, why would you not drink? Why would you not? It's fun. Why would you not do it? And that's the mindset that I had for a bit of time. And you're in the world and you're living, but we kind of just going through the motions at that point. And drinking was one of those motions. It just felt like, why would I not drink today? Why would I not drink? Why would I not drink? Um, so that flow is kind of talking about the flow of the waves, the flow of the ocean, and you're in it, but you can't really escape it. Um, and so yeah, you're just in the ocean. It's just taking you where you need to go. Kind of goes back to that point that I said with ebb. You're kind of in it. So ebb and flow, obviously, ebb and flow. Those are two terms that kind of go back and forth. The ebb and the flow of the waves. And we're talking about ebb and flow. Does that make sense? I don't. Like I said, I don't. I'm here. I'm writing it out, and I'm talking about it. I'm not sure I'm able to explain it. If you get back to me, you can listen in. You get back to me about it, and if I have to redo, if I have to answer questions about particular things that people have questions about, I'm okay with that. Like I said, I love talking, so this is no problem for me at all. It doesn't even feel like work. I'm just literally looking at my art and talking about shit that I wrote. This is not work for me at all. Art is not work for me, and I guess talking about art is not work for me either, because this is fucking easy as shit. It's literally me talking about stuff that I wrote and trying to explain it, and that's a lot of fun. Um, anyway, it must go, it must flow. I think that point is kind of like you're just vibing. You're not really when you're a drunk. Every day is basically the same, and you're just trying to kind of like just get through. I think you're trying to get through every day the same, just taking it easy, just relaxing every day, and it's not. I guess it's not a great way to live. Definitely not a great way to live. Like you'll see it in the next piece, Ocean, where it's kind of like this weird kind of like place where you don't want to be, but when you're there, it's not bad all the time, right? But you don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. But so ocean is about literally being at the bottom of the ocean, and what I mean by that is that you can't breathe because not that you can't breathe, but you're underwater. You're literally drinking so much. You're constantly drinking, and it's real hard to get your head above the water because you're in the ocean, right? That's what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna read from it, and I'll probably stop at points, kind of when I get to a point where I feel like talking, I'll stop. So, ocean. When I walked on the ocean floor, all was quiet. There was a peace and a certain type of reverence. There was a loving place sometimes. There was a wild place too, but it was home, and it was a nice place to be. I have to say it was nice sometimes being down there at the very bottom of everything. It wasn't really good. It wasn't really bad, unless it was really bad. So that first verse, I think, is definitely not if you know it in talking about drinking, you could probably tell that this is about the time period when I was drinking overall. I'm kind of looking back from the the future of this poem where I don't drink, and I'm looking back on those times, talking about um, what it felt like. Because sometimes it just felt really cool. It felt really good to kind of just drink and just relax and just, you know. And I have really good memories drinking. Like at my wedding, I made, um, some red wine hot chocolate for the guest, and it came out really good. It was delicious, and that's something that I think about. You know, that's a positive memory that I have. That's a happy memory that I have. In a time where I wasn't happy, um, at all. I wasn't happy. I didn't know what happiness was till about 6 months ago, basically. I think so. That's kind of fun. That's a whole nother story. That's gonna be a whole nother topic that we're gonna have to talk about at some point. Um, but yeah, so this is definitely about drinking, and I think being down there at the very bottom of everything, that that's a reference. If you know me, then you probably know I listen to a lot of music, and Bright Eyes is one of my favorite bands, and that is definitely a reference to a Bright Eyes song. If you know Bright Eyes, you probably know what the song is. But yeah, so that's a little throw-in, little Easter egg for y'all, I guess you can say, if you can do that on albums and stuff like this, and that's an Easter egg for the fans, for the fans of the fans that I'm stuff of. Um, Unless it was really bad, yeah, and like I said, for the most part, like day to day life, you're trying to make it as easy and simple as possible. Cause you don't want to do a lot of shit. You don't want to get shit done when you're drinking. You just want to pass the time, and I feel like that is an experience that a lot of people can relate to. Just wanting to pass the time day to day, especially when you're doing it by drinking. You just kind of wanting time to pass, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but sometimes it's really bad. Is what that was um, talking about there. Um, yeah, when it's bad, it could be really bad. And so this next line, this part is, I think, kind of like a weird. It's really written. I'm gonna talk about it more thematically for now, and then we'll go back and talk about the actual, I think, the deepness of the words there, kind of later on. But even those times have a certain depth to them, which defy their true natures and obscure, and the quiet covers it all up like a blanket, but telling a life out of the situation. So in the end, it's just a big, quiet patchwork quilt. So I think this whole thing is very. I want it to be like visual. So I want you to kind of think about a quilt, right? And then the next part is me describing the quilt, and then the end. Well, I'll talk about the end at the end, but the end is like you covering yourself in the quilt. And I think it's kind of like we'll go back to that idea that it's comforting to be drunk. It's comforting. It really is. Like when you're that person, that's your comfort zone. That's where you derive comfort from. That's where you're comfortable. Um, and so okay, so then we're gonna go back into it. So in the end, it's just a big quiet patchwork quilt. You can see the stitches and tears and eons of work that allowed it to exist. You can see the phrase, the bright and faded hues, the colors. You can feel the cotton on your skin, but it's quiet and somber always. It's a quilt you only want. It's a quilt you only pull out when you want to remember what it feels like to be on the bottom of the ocean. And that's the theme right there. Is that yeah, I can drink now. I don't stop myself from drinking, but the feelings that drinking produce are not feelings that I want to create right now. That's why I don't drink anymore. Honestly, I just don't want what drinking gives me is not something that I want right now. It's not productive energy. It's just when you want to relax. And I don't want to relax right now. I got shit to do. I gotta keep busy. I gotta keep moving. This is a forward time for me, not a backwards time, not a zero gain time. I'm trying to work. So that's why I don't drink anymore. Cause I don't. You don't get shit done when you're drinking. You don't. Cause you don't want to get shit done. You don't want to do anything. That's what alcohol does to you. That's the best part about being drunk is that you don't want to do anything. You don't want to do anything. Um, I think that's why most people drink is that at the end of the night they don't want to do anything. But at the same time, sometimes you get too into not doing anything. You see what I'm saying? And it's kind of weird being a functional version of that where you drink, you still gotta go to work, and you're surrounded by booze, and you drink at work, and you get home and you drink, and it's just drinking becomes not a way to relax, but kind of like a means to an end of the day. You know, you just drink to end your day, basically, not even to relax at all, because it's not relaxing in that case. Just you drink as much. Like right now, if I had a drink, it'd probably be pretty relaxing to me. But before, when I was drinking, I drink all the time. Like I said, I drink at work, I drink for work, I drink at work, and then I'm drinking at home too. So, yeah, a lot of time for drinking in my life at that point in time. So we had a lot of time for it, and we did a lot, and we were real good at it. I'm really good at drinking too, by the way. I'm not saying I drink a lot, but I'm 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 pretty good at drinking. Like I've been doing it for a while. I'm a professional at it. Um, I hate saying that. Like my mom gets so mad, man. It's like, yeah, I'm a professional. I'm a professional. I'm a professional drunk. She just gets so mad. I mean, people get mad at you when you say shit like that. Like, hey, don't say that. That's not cool. But that's what it felt like at the time. Like I wasn't really joking at all, necessarily. I feel like I'm joking in terms of like life and what I'm talking about. I wasn't joking about being a drunk because that's not really a joke. It's literally what was going on in my life. So yeah. All right. So that's the theme of the poem. We're past that point, and I'd probably take a break right now. This would be a good time to kind of take a break from recording. So I'm gonna do that, and I'll be back in a little bit probably. We're gonna just pause. I'm gonna start it back up. I'm gonna use the bathroom, and then we'll jump right back to the top and talk about more like I guess technical stuff about the poem now. All right, so I'll be right back. See y'all. All right, so we're back. I just got hydrated. I guess it wasn't that much time for y'all at all, but it was like maybe like 3 minutes for me. I just got up, used the bathroom. Excuse me. Got some water. Hold on, let me put my headphones on in a better way so that they work correctly. Um, yeah, so we're gonna get right back into it. Drip. I like drip. Um, I like it as a poem and I like it as a sound effect. Like I said, I was thinking about just going for the whole like doing that as like the backdrop. But then what happened I put it in FL Studio and I was fucking around with it. I was just kinda listening to it and then it just hit me. Damn, I think I'm just gonna like kinda make it like you're under the ocean the whole time. So then I was kind of playing around like a lot of ideas at that point, and I just found the two notes that I used, to back and forth. And I found them, and I was like, bruh, that's so perfect. Um, and I had to go back and check like what it was that I actually used. And obviously, FL Studio, if you know how to use the program, you could easily check like what it is you're using, and you know, I go back and I could check it. Like literally, I could tell you, oh, it's G flat in this particular, you know, this particular program, this version of it. Let me just again, like I said, I can't not respond to people right now. So if I got a text, I got a text. I apologize. This is important shit we're doing. Like I'm always busy, bro. I got shit to do. At work, what's up? And then the text is like at work, what's up, right? Then that's probably telling a bit, but who gives a fuck? I don't know me. Yeah, I don't know what I be doing, huh? No, I'm just talking to a friend right now. Just give me a second. What's up? Nada, recording. Nada. Wow, nada. But recording a podcast. Recording a podcast. Recording a podcast episode makes a bit more sense. Um, yeah. So, drip, 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 drip. Yeah, yeah. I love like the technical aspect of just being able to like makes noises and stuff. It's kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie. It's just a fun thing to do. It's just being here, making the noises with my mouth is enjoyable too. So I do like this poem a lot. It's just one word over and over again, but I think the spacing and the way it's kind of like, and also it's just about like the flow. Like I want you to think about a faucet dripping, obviously. So drip, 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 and you kind of like see the drips maybe coming out of the faucet. I think the spacing is for the timing, obviously. So if you're really like reading the poem, and I don't know where I so Water is definitely up on SoundCloud where the podcast is at. So you can just look at it, the poem there, and read the poem there. If you hear the podcast, listen to the podcast. Um, go check out Water on SoundCloud. And the lyrics are there. I just don't have a website right now. Everything kind of tied up. And I'll get to that eventually, obviously. My plan is to have a website. And actually, that's something I could tell my friend to do for me. So I will look into that project. That's a whole another project that I got to work on with somebody else. So, hmm. Anyway, so we're going to work on that, a website for, I guess, the combined entity that is maybe not the big Rainy Boops character overall, because Rainy Boops is YouTube streaming, Twitch streaming. I mean, YouTube video is Twitch, also Spotify, also the music slash poetry creation stuff, but also this, which is the podcast now. So it's a big. So I probably won't do. I'll probably just do Rainy Boops. That I mean, I guess I could probably just make a personal website at this point for everything. It's gonna be a big site. That's gonna be a lot of work. Mm, that's a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money right now. But we'll get there. Money just comes and goes. I'm not worried about money. I never worry about money anymore. I can't sit here and worry about numbers on a page. That's just numbers, bro. You just, you know, basically just like numbers on a page to me. And then it's just, if you have more numbers, you get more stuff. If you have less numbers, you get less stuff. I mean, it's very simple. It's not complicated at all. I don't worry about that. That's out of my control. At least right now. I mean, I'm trying. This is me trying right now. Right? This is me trying, doing a podcast, talking about podcasting and shit. This is me working right now. You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy about today? My headphone's not connected to the computer, so I don't know what's going on in the computer right now. And it's good though because y'all will actually y'all don't hear the text message going off because they go through the headphones. At least you might not hear it. I don't know. I heard it, but it's actually working out just fine. Everything's perfect. Actually, this is fine. This is fine. Um, yeah. um. So yeah, ebb. Let's get on to ebb. So ebb and flow, obviously, kind of they should go together. In terms of like thematically and structurally, I think they kind of go together as well. They kind of have that same come down of where it is, and also you can see it. I kind of like the way it's written. It's like a lot of words and then not a lot of words and a lot of words and not a lot of words. So I'm gonna kind of go through that a bit right now. I wouldn't say there was a point where I wanted to stay, but the tides was going to take me one way or another. And those two lines are really long lines, and then it calms down a bit, and so it did. And now I ride the crest of waves. They crash and they are wet, and then you kind of get the big line again. The jet stream is wild and fast and takes you where you need to go sometimes, and sometimes it dashes you to the rocks, and that's another big line. And then the rest of it are these smaller lines. Kind of calm down again, with the energy calms down again, and then you're like, but you get used to it, and you can learn, and then you can ride the waves as they come. You see, and it's kind of like you're almost riding the waves out of the poem, I think, is what I was trying to go for with that. So maybe you see it, maybe you don't. On Ebb, at least, and Flow's kind of the same way. Flow's the same way. I'm just gonna go straight from Ebb to Flow because, like I said, they are very similar in theme and very similar in the writing of the poem too. The flow. I want to say that the rivers always swim forward. I want to say the wave crashes, constantly crash in the sea. But how can you ever really know? Does the ocean ever take a break? If for not one moment is it able to stop? And then there's a hard pause, and then you go, no. And then the answer is no, and the sign is there to explain it. So the ending, obviously, it trails off into ocean, so you kind of want it to be very soft and very kind of poignant at the end, I think, is the word. I hate that word. I hate saying it. Um, I probably said it wrong too. Anyway, uh, no. The answer is no, and science is just explaining it must go constantly. It is peaceful, working always. It must go. It must flow. And those lines, I think, are very like soft and kind of like deliberately soft at this point. I guess you can say it was meant to be softer because I kind of wanted to fade out into the ocean, but also kind of like the softness of the wave kind of hitting the shore. That's kind of like the impression I'm kind of get there. Like kind of like the soft, kind of flowing nature that it can be really super chill for you. You know, that lifestyle, that drinking lifestyle that we're talking. Well, this is all about drinking, right? It can be super chill. You can wake up feeling good after a night out. It can happen. You just gotta be careful. You know, you have to be on top of shit. You can't just let it happen. But it can happen sometimes. You can have a good life like that. I'm not saying it's a bad life. It wasn't a good life for me at the time because honestly, I was doing it drinking to cover up depression I didn't know I had, and a lot of other issues that I didn't know was going on in my life. Just because my brain was different, I didn't really realize at the time how different and weird my brain is. But my brain is fucking weird, bro. And it tells me to do some things sometimes. I'm like, why would I do that? But also, do it, and I do it, and it ends up being the best decision. Because I don't understand in the moment a lot of time why my brain is telling me to do stuff. But if I follow through on what my brain is telling me to do, it usually doesn't lead me too astray. Except for this whole drinking business. But like I said, even drinking has a positive aspect to it for me because um sorry I had to hydrate because my throat was hurting me. Um and it still hurts me a bit. I probably have a cough drop in right now because I've been talking for like 40 minutes at this point, and that's a lot of work apparently. Okay, we're gonna take it down a bit because I don't want to have to get up to get a cough drop before the end of the episode. Um, but yeah, so Flow's kind of a fun one. Um, in that it kind of like fades out into ocean, and I'm gonna go back and talk about Maelstrom before I get into ocean because ocean is kind of its own thing, obviously at this point. So Maelstrom is fun. Like I said, it's a song, and this is one of the first ones that I wrote. Like I wrote this one. I did fire. I think light. I did fire, then light, then water, then dark, then air and earth. That was the order that I wrote them in. So this was the third one I wrote, and the first one with actual singing in it. So this is definitely a song that I wrote. Um, and it feels good. Like I like it. It was a lot of fun. And like I said, this one's kind of a weird one because I'm talking about memories that I don't really want to share right now. So we'll get back to this one probably after a couple of other ones. Because we have to talk about some stuff when we get to the other poems that will be kind of like crazy at some point. probably in relation to fire. So like I said, I had to skip it for now. But when we get there, we get there when we get there, right? So we're gonna loop back around to fire. But I do like this one technically. It's a song, and it's good. It works for me, and I like it. We'll get back to that though. We're gonna talk about it a bit more later on. I assure you, we'll get back to it. But like I said, that part in time is kind of like a weird part. So the quiet after flow and everything kind of slows down. There's nothing, and then out of nowhere, ocean. I love that part. Um, I love it. I think it definitely sets you up for what's coming later on, which is to talk about the the flow of the ocean. And I like that part because I kind of wanted it to be like kind of like you were just kind of floating in the ocean for a little bit, and I like that kind of like that pause at the end of flow, and you're like ocean, and you're like kind of sitting in the ocean, right? And I think it conveys that idea very well. I think talking about ocean thematically, I have to talk about it technically as well a bit. But when I walked on the ocean floor, all was quiet. There was a peace and a certain type of reverence. Those lines definitely kind of set you up for this is gonna be some type of crazy tale, right? The language is very like kind of like a weird kind of. When I walked on the ocean floor, all was quiet. There was a peace and a certain type of reverence there. It was a loving place sometimes. There was a wild place too. And I think it's just like kind of me telling you, this is the beginning of a story, right? And I'm just describing a place right now. But the place itself is more than a place because we're not talking about a little ocean now, are we? We're talking about the depths of drinking and the depths of what it can get like to be at the bottom. And like I said later on, but it was home. It was a nice place to be. I have to say it was nice sometimes being down at the very bottom of everything. We're at the bottom of the ocean. And there's nowhere else you can go at this point. Honestly, you're on the bottom of the ocean. You can't get any lower. You know? You can't get any lower than that. Physically, you can't get any lower than that. And I think that's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about. When you're drinking, you can't sometimes get any lower than you are. At the very bottom of everything, it wasn't really good. It wasn't really bad, unless it was really bad. And I love that. I love that line because it wasn't really good. It wasn't really bad. And you're saying at at best it wasn't good. You know, at best it wasn't good. You know, and the lower end of it is unless it's really bad. And sometimes, obviously it could be really bad. And it was really bad for me sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. I'm okay with saying it was really bad sometimes. There's no way anybody will ever be able to figure out how much I drank, especially like when I was like, Lord, I drank so much. I drank so much, y'all. I drank. I can't even tell you on literal. I do not want to tell you how much I drank when I was drinking, cause Jesus, it was insane. Um, so a good way to lose weight also quit drinking. If you drink and you quit drinking, you'll lose so much weight. It just because the amount of weight I gained from drinking when I when I started taking care of myself again, and when I cut back on the drinking, mostly once I didn't cut back on the drinking until after I got divorced and after I moved back to New York, and like even then, that didn't happen until like way into quarantine when I was literally sitting there in quarantine like, hey, I'm gonna drink myself to death if I keep drinking the way I'm at, and that's when I was like, hey, I need to stop drinking because I'm home all the time. I was literally in quarantine for like 2 years. I was in quarantine in New York. I didn't want to be there at all. I was stuck in New York during the first part of COVID quarantine. I was literally stuck in New York for 2 years, so I didn't want to be there. It's right after my right after my divorce, right? So I get divorced in 20 at the end of October 2019 is when I got divorced. COVID literally started 4 months after that. So you can imagine kind of the state I was in. I'm really like, I'm really like, hey, I'm gonna get my life together. And we're gonna start over. It's gonna be great. And then COVID happened. And I'm like, fuck. Now what? Now what's gonna happen? So I was in quarantine for 2 years. I didn't want to stay in New York at all. I was silly, gonna like get divorced, go to New York for a little bit, get my footing, and then go somewhere else. But COVID happened, and I got stuck in New York for 2 years. Um, and like I said, that's when I quit drinking because I was like, hey, I'm home all the time. I'm gonna kill myself if I drink the way I've been drinking this whole time for 2 years. I looked at it and I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm not leaving New York till I have a vaccine that I can feel comfortable traveling with. So that's why I was stuck for 2 years because I basically left as soon as I got my vaccine shot. I was like, deuces. It's basically like deuces. As soon as I got my shot, basically I got my second shot and I was on a plane 5 days later. I think is when I came to Arkansas. Basically that same week. I was like, fuck New York. So so yeah, back to ocean. What I say about tangents? We don't do those here. We don't do those here, sir. We do not do those here. That my phone doing things. Be over there in a little while. Okay, this is the part that, like I said, y'all already know. In a bit, I'm gonna have to answer the door for my friend. I'm just gonna go answer the door and come back. Y'all can hear the conversation. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Unless I'm mad, then I'll come back and I'll. If I'm mad, then I'll come back and I'll turn it off. But I don't think I'm gonna be mad. Um, see ya in a bit. Um, yeah. Sorry about that. I'm not at all. Like I said, if you don't like anything I'm doing art wise or podcast wise, I hate to say it, but I think you could just eat my whole ass still. So this is gonna come off great. You're telling paying customers of your podcast to eat your whole ass. Yeah, yeah, I am, and I hope you enjoy it. I know I'm gonna enjoy it. That's disgusting, but here we are. Um, so anyway, we're back on it. We're back on it. We're not telling people to eat your whole ass anymore. But really, are we? Yeah, no, no. We're gonna get back into the poem. Right. Okay. So we're talking about the blanket, right? The second piece is talking. The second part of the poem is talking about a blanket, a literal blanket, not a literal blanket. I mean, a metaphorical blanket that you're covering yourself with. That that is alcohol. And I think so. This is what I'm saying in this line. But even though those times have a certain depth to them, which defy their true natures and obscure, and the quiet covers all up like a blanket, but chilling the life out of these situations. So it's it's a weird thing, but when you drink, it feels warm, right? Literally, drinking produces the feeling of warmth because your blood vessels release heat. They expand and they release heat. That's the physical feeling. You're not gaining heat. You're losing heat, but it feels warm because your heat is leaving your body. So you feel the heat leaving your body. But so it's it's literally you're chilling yourself, but it feels warm while you do it. So you do it to warm up, but you shouldn't because you're losing heat. And I think that little physical analogy is what I'm talking about when I say, and the quiet covers all up like a blanket, but chilling the life out. So it's not only about the blanket that you're covering it up. It's a weird blanket because when you put it on, it chills you. and that's the comfort of it. That's the comfort of the blanket. It's chilling you. So in the end, it's just a big, quiet patchwork quilt. It's kind of like the idea that you're piecing all this stuff together, but it's not. It's still gonna chill you, and it's a blanket, but it's comforting, but it's not necessarily a blanket that you should use because it's gonna make you cold and it's gonna chill you out. But that's what you want in that situation. You know what I mean? You know? So it's not necessarily what you want or need in that situation, but it'll work, is what I mean to say. Um, so you can see the stitches and tears and eons of work that allow you to exist. You can see the phrase, the bright and faded hues, the colors. You can feel the cotton on your skin. And those lines are like just literally trying to bring you into the sense that this is a real physical, quilt that you're covered with. And we're talking about the ocean, the depths of the ocean. And I guess what I mean to say that it feels so comfortable, right? Just being able to do it and to drink when you're down there. It's just something that you do, you know? And you can feel it. And it doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel bad. It feels good. When you're doing it, it feels good. When you're drinking, it feels good. So, but it's quiet and somber always. That line it gets me every time because you're talking about it like it's bright and it's faded and it's a blanket and it feels good, but then you have to talk yourself down and remind yourself that it's quiet and somber always. It's a quilt you only pull out when you want to remember what it feels like to be at the bottom of the ocean. And that's me right now. That's me coming from, you know, the future where I don't drink anymore. Where I'm saying now if I do drink, it's me, you know, if I do drink, then it's me taking myself back down to the bottom of the ocean and visiting for a little bit and saying, hey, this feels okay. I don't want to do anything right now because I literally have the whole ocean on top of me. But for a while, it's not bad to get down there. I'm not saying I'm gonna get that drunk at all if I do drink, but I mean just visiting for a little bit, touching base with alcohol and saying, "Hey, you exist," and that's it. And kind of like just look, I don't like I said, I'm not planning on drinking basically unless I have to for like work, and even then I'd probably end up spitting. And like I never understood people who spit, but now I do. So in the wine world, I don't like spitting, and I probably won't spit because I don't like spitting. I don't like the idea of spitting. It just goes to me. So what kind of grossed me out to spit in general, and to spitting in general is I don't like the emotion. That's why I don't really do it when I'm at tasting events. I just try to not drink as much as I only try to drink when I need to drink. You know what I mean? When I'm at a tasting event, which is still a lot of shit. Don't get me wrong. I'm still probably gonna be tipsy walking around, and I have been probably noted drunk at some tasting events before. But that's out of my control now. I can't go back and say, "Hey, this never happened." It did. But hey, whatever. Fuck it. Sometimes you just gotta say fuck it. So yeah, what it feels like to be on the bottom of the ocean. And I feel like that line and the demeanor kind of gets you down to like a point where I try to say it. I don't try to say it in a somber way at the end. I try to say it at least kind of upbeat because I'm looking back on it. It doesn't really make me feel bad anymore. So that's why it kind of like I could have said it a bit more somberly at the end, but I didn't because I don't feel somber. I don't feel sad anymore. That's not the energy I'm trying to put out there at all. Like I said, I'm looking back on it at that point. It's a quote you only pull out when you want to remember what it feels like to be on the bottom of the ocean. But it doesn't like that lifeline you would think that it would be a bit more somber, but it's like a bit almost cheerful. I think I say it. Uh, and I was expecting it to be somber too, but then I said it. I was like, no, the cheerfulness kind of sounds. It sounds nice at the end of this one, because it's not. You're saying you're looking back and you don't feel as bad as you did. Is that my door or is that the neighbor on top? I don't know. I'm gonna wait for my friend to message me before I get up though, so that's okay. I think my neighbor's being loud upstairs, but that happens sometimes. That's out of my control. I don't worry about things that's out of my control. I can't control what my neighbor's doing. I control what I'm doing, but I can't control what my neighbor's doing. So I don't even get mad at that shit anymore, you know. But I live alone, so it's like I got nobody to get mad with. So I only have to get mad at the shit that I actually get mad at, which is to say, not a whole lot when I'm home. But when you live with people, you kind of have to get mad at shit that they get mad at too. You know what I mean? And funny thing about that is that the person I've lived the most with in my life was very good at getting mad at stuff. Very good at it. So let's just leave it at that. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Surely we're gonna get to that. That is a time period of my life that I will have to talk about at some point. Actually, like talk about the time period and not just generally speaking about when I was drinking during that time period. This is about drinking, so we're talking about drinking today. But this is um this is definitely during a time period where other shit was going on. It wasn't only drinking, obviously. To say the least, it wasn't only drinking. Drinking was part of the problem, but it wasn't. It wasn't the whole problem. It wasn't the whole story. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But like I said, ocean is about drinking. Water is about drinking. The whole thing's about drinking. I love this poem. I love talking about it today. And it was a lot of fun. I didn't realize this would be fucking an hour long, but here we are at an hour, basically trailing off an hour. And I literally just sat here and spoke for an hour. Interesting. Um, but yeah, I guess that's it. I do want to say I do want to hear questions. If you have questions, just leave them in the comments, and I'll try to either record another episode to answer questions about it, or at some point in the future. Like if I have like a bunch of questions on my podcast, I'll be like, hey, I'm going to record a Q&A where I answer all the questions, probably. Or if I have a lot of questions, I'll be like, fuck, that's a lot of questions. We're going to have to do multiple Q&A episodes, if we have a lot of questions. But hopefully we don't get that many questions. Hopefully we don't get that. No, ask me as many questions as you fucking have. I want to hear your questions. I love questions. I love talking. So why would I say, hopefully we don't get a lot of questions? I don't feel that way. I love questions. I love challenges. I love questions. I love all that shit. So if you have anything to ask me about the podcast, about poetry, about writing in general, because I probably have a lot of tips for y'all about writing too. Probably. Somewhere in my head I probably have tips. I just gotta find them and pull them out whenever the hell they pop up. Um, and maybe I'm hoping that you'll get a sense of like my process of writing stuff too. So maybe you'll gain some type of like insight for your own stuff. Like I'm hoping to like I love art. I love art being created. And if I can foster that in somebody else, that's great. I love that shit. So like I said, like the first one, I'm not trying to stretch it out for it all, but it looks like we're about to hit an hour. That's an hour right there. So I guess that's probably a good place to call it at this point. Um, it was fun talking about the poem. I love this poem. I love all my poems. That's kind of weird, but I love everything I write. So I guess that's kind of like a good sign or whatever. Um, but anyway, yeah, I guess that's it. I don't really have a lot more to say about water, but that was a whole hour. So I mean, if y'all have questions, I'll answer questions. But it was a lot of fun talking about water and drinking today. Um, I guess it's a good sign that I could just talk about things. Like I had a friend, and like I was telling him about some stuff that happened to me, and he's like, "Are you over it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And he's like, "No, but you're talking about it." And I'm like, "That means that I'm probably over it. That I'm talking about it so freely, that I'm able to just say, hey, yeah, this shit happened to me. It was awful. It was so bad. Just say that." And I accept that part of my life. It was bad. There was bad shit happening to me basically all the time at that point. So it was bad. Um, it was definitely a time period where I was just like, what's going on, you know? But right now, I'm looking back at it and saying, no, that I dealt with that. I can talk about it now. And like the drinking, I can talk about it now because I haven't had a drink in almost 2 years at this point. Maybe no, it's definitely been longer than 2 years since, because it was summer 2020, summer 2020 when I stopped drinking, and it's 2022, the end of 2022. So yeah, no, it's been wow. I haven't had a drink in 2.5 years? Question mark. Wow. Whew. Okay, that's weird. That hit hard. I'm like literally in tears. That wasn't supposed to happen, y'all. But here we are. Here we are at the end of the poem about drinking, and I'm crying that I haven't had a drink in 2.5 years. Wow. Um, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize it's been that long, but since I quit, since I let me not say I've had some drinks. Like I drank in when I got to Arkansas. I had a couple of beers because, like I said, I was living with a friend at the time, and he was drinking. I was trying to cut back on his drinking, but it didn't really work out for anybody, honestly. But I was drinking just to not make him feel so lonely, because I feel like if you're hanging out with someone and they don't drink, but you drink, and y'all just hanging out, it just feels weird. It feels like maybe I didn't want to come off as being a pompous or whatever, so I was drinking a bit. But nothing. I'd have like a beer every 3 days. Cause like I said, my life isn't set up to drink right now. Cause drinking takes you out of doing shit that I need to get done. That's literally one of the best ways I taught myself to stop drinking was I made a schedule and I was like, hey, I could basically only drink in the middle of the day when I was in quarantine because like just the amount of stuff I was trying to do, I had a schedule set up where I was in the morning, I would dance and sing, and then in the evening I would dance and sing. And between that, I was just pretty much playing video games and relaxing. I had some time to write, but all those activities were activities that I couldn't do while I was drinking. If I was drinking, I pretty much had to take off the whole day, and I don't like taking off days. I like being busy and shit. So that's what ended up happening to me. That was the best way that I found to quit drinking was just fill my day with a bunch of shit that I couldn't do after drinking and just shit that I wanted to do. You know, it wasn't shit that was hard for me to do. It's literally smoke weed, dance, sing, write, eat, play video games, walk around. And that's what I did. And all those things, I couldn't do them anymore while drinking. So I only had basically a 2 hour period in my day in the middle of the day where I could drink. And now I don't drink at all. Like I just don't even think about booze or anything like that. But when I was thinking about it, I pretty much only gave myself a timeline of 2 hours in the middle of the day where I could drink. So if I passed that time period and I drank, it fucked up the rest of my day. Like I couldn't keep my schedule. So and at the end of the day, it worked for me. So I don't know. It might work for you. This might be the biggest life tip. This might change somebody's life. I don't know. Who knows what's going on? I don't know what's going on. You got the wrong dude, bro. Um, yeah. So anyway, I guess that's it. I'll talk to y'all on the next one. This was a lot of fun, kind of exploration into the past and drinking and what it meant to me, I guess. And we said a lot of shit on this one, but yeah, I guess on to the next one. Bye, y'all.